Hi friends, thank you for tuning in to the Concussion Coach podcast. I'm Bethany Lewis, the Concussion Coach. I'm a neurological occupational therapist and certified life coach, and I specialize in guiding people through their concussion recovery journey. I am passionate about helping people understand their injury, speed up their recovery, and reclaim control over their life post-concussion. The purpose of this podcast is to help increase awareness of concussions and the impact they can have on a person's life, and to bring hope to people who have suffered a concussion and those who love them. I firmly believe that sharing stories and knowledge about concussions will bring important light and understanding to this misunderstood and often invisible injury. The information in this podcast is meant to bring that awareness and hope and is not meant as medical advice. The opinions shared are those of the interviewees and my own. If you are suffering with lingering concussion symptoms, I have created a concussion coaching program specifically for you. I will be your mentor to guide you through your recovery journey, offering help with understanding and managing your symptoms, setting achievable goals, and learning how to manage your own thoughts and nervous system in order to get control over your life again. If this program sounds like something that would help you or someone you love, sign up for a free consultation. In the consultation, you'll get valuable information and resources and gain hope for your future. Sign up for your free consultation at the link in the show notes or at my website, www.theconcussioncoach.com. Hi friends, welcome back to the Concussion Coach podcast. Before I introduce my guest today, I just wanted to make sure that you are all aware of the free guide that is available on my website. It's the 5 best ways to support your loved one dealing with a concussion. If you have a friend or family member who is struggling with post-concussion symptoms, or if you're the one struggling and would like your loved ones to know more about what you're going through and how they can help, head over to my website, www.theconcussioncoach.com, and download the free guide. I'm very excited for this interview today. My guest is Julia Manning. Julia is the Chief of Staff and Communications at the Concussion and CTE Foundation. She brings years of personal experience with post-concussion syndrome with her to the role, having suffered a concussion in 2017 that led to nearly a decade of symptoms. Julia is a 4-time Emmy Award-winning producer and is the director behind all the foundation's storytelling content. She also hosts Invisible Impact, a post-concussion podcast where she talks to other people about their experiences with concussion recovery. So similar things here. So I'm excited to bring awareness to people who are listening to this, that her podcast is available as well. So thank you so much for being here, Julia. I'm so excited for this conversation we're going to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Me as well. Thanks so much for having me, Bethany.
Yeah. So let's just start in with hearing your story, if that's okay. I just want to have you kind of share with us what happened, how long ago was it? Let's just start at the beginning.
Absolutely. No, happy to do it. It's not that exciting of a story, but I think a lot of people can relate to that, of the concussions that kind of happen in everyday life. So back in 2017, I was getting ready to go on a run before work in a big rush, like leaned all the way underneath my countertop in the kitchen, tying up my shoes, and stood up like ready to rock and slammed the back of my head into that counter. And it wasn't that dramatic. Like I didn't black out. I wasn't puking. I'd had several concussions prior to that from playing soccer and a car accident, like various other things. I knew right away, like, oh, great. Like I have a concussion. Awesome. And I called into work and was just like, all right, well, I'll just chill for the day and I'll be fine by tomorrow. In my experience, everything I knew about concussion recovery was in the context of sports. So, okay, I have to sit out for 10 days. Okay, I have to get checked again in 7 days. I was not thinking, oh, I can't go to work for a week, right? I was like, okay, I took 1 day, like, fine. So at the time, I was working as a TV news producer. If you've ever been in a newsroom, it's an incredibly stimulating environment. There are scanners going on, there's people running around, there's TVs lining everywhere. So the next day I walked into work like I normally would, went through the meeting, started, I had my 3 screens, I'm starting to write my show, and everyone around me could notice that I was not okay. I didn't notice that I wasn't okay, which is really common, right? Like we can't rely on the person with the brain injury to be able to tag themselves out in a lot of instances. So I guess I was speaking with really slow speech, like my gaze was pretty noticeably off, and I just like wasn't responding quickly. So my boss was like, hey, maybe you should take a break. And I went into the back room where we have our edit bays where it's dark. And then I like woke up several hours later, like completely out of it and on my way to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
So it was just a situation where I just obviously pushed way too hard. But then, the similar experience to what people have in the emergency room, they're like, okay, you have a concussion, like go rest. And you're just like, okay. And
Okay, I'll
again,
do
I
that.
had been through that before, and every single other time, the like 4 or 5 concussions that I had before, I'd been completely fine in 2 weeks, like no problem, no extra treatment. And so pretty soon after that one, within that first week or two, I realized like this is way different. I am like not okay. This is the worst headache I've ever had in my life, and I would not go back to work. And that just kind of unleashed a spiral of the last almost decade of dealing with this.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so that was and curious with when you were in the hospital or and they were checking you out, was there anything that they told you other than go home and rest? Like any
No, and they
expectation?
even left it up to me, like, do you want to scan? Like, you probably don't have a brain bleed, but do you want to check? And I'm like, well, you're the doc. Should I check? Like, and then so I think actually tracing all the way back to that, that then immediately sets you up for, well, are you being dramatic? Like, does your head
Right.
really hurt that bad? Like, it puts it, I think this is something that we can get into later, but that is so hard about being a patient of this invisible injury of like, it puts so much on you of like, well, you're the only one who knows how you feel. Like, are you sure it's that bad? And then you start
Yes.
this cycle of questioning yourself
Question mark.
constantly, gaslighting yourself. I did that the whole time. And so, yeah, that's sort of interesting. I haven't thought about that in a while, but they were very like, yeah, like, you know what to do. Just don't look at your screen. Stay away from work for a few days and rest and follow up with your PCP if you still have a headache in like 2 weeks, I think is what they said.
Okay, yes, that is, I mean that's I think people are getting having that same exact experience
Yeah.
today. Like we haven't
Which is
we haven't
sad. I
moved
wish it
past
would have
that.
gotten better by now. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a bummer.
Yeah, but that is a really interesting point that I hadn't thought about. I mean, that could be part of what, all of the gaslighting of yourself stems from. It's like people,
Yeah,
the professionals are asking you for your opinion on it instead of being like, yeah, this is real, this is serious here, let's take it seriously.
right,
Like, well, what do
right.
you think? Which, I mean, not that that's their fault even necessarily. It's just it is the way it is, and so I appreciate you calling that out. I think that is important to recognize.
Yeah.
So at what point was it then that you realized like that you became more aware of your own symptoms, like or did that continue on where people were recognizing things and you weren't aware of it?
I was definitely aware. I would
Okay.
say after getting out of the blur of that like first week, because that first week to 2 weeks was I was truly sleeping for like 18 hours a day. Like I was not awake. At first,
Mhm.
you're like in a blur, and that in itself is scary because it's like
Yeah.
I can't stay awake. Like what is wrong with me? And it's not like oh, I'm sad, oh, I'm just tired sleep. It's like my brain cannot
Hmm.
turn back on. Like I have to be sleeping, you don't have a choice. And
Hmm.
so coming out of that, then I remember just like the most excruciating sensitivity to light. Like I remember wrapping like this massive blanket around my eyes because like I needed full coverage and then like any little like sliver that would get through felt like sunbeams just like
Oh.
I know it sounds quite dramatic when I'm describing it, but that is really what it felt like and it was just really hard. And then, yeah, the headache just being the worst headache that I had. And I wasn't like a headache person. And this was just like undeniable, like your head is going to explode out of your skull type of situation. So I became very aware of that. And I also became very aware of like my processing and like not feeling because again, I was having to operate at a pretty high level within the job that I was at of just a high level in like reaction time, thinking quickly, like live TV, like they're looking at me to make decisions. And then all of a sudden I couldn't barely even decide like, what am I gonna eat for lunch? Was like a 2 hour, like, how do I do this? And that was very apparent to me and very scary from the
So,
beginning.
so were you like, did you end up taking time? I assume you took time off of work. If you could, like, how did that play out? What did that
Yeah,
look
so I ended up then following up with my PCP who then sent me to like a concussion specialist MD like sports med and he was the one that was like you cannot be at work. Like that's not going to make it any better. And I remember hearing like 2 weeks and being like that I don't have enough sick days. Like that's so long and it's kind of crazy because that turned into I was on disability for about a year before I could go back to work. I there were several stints within that where I would try to go and do like the noon newscast, which was a little easier, like a half day or something. And I would do that for a few weeks and go. And I just remember there was a phrase there, maybe like 4 months in, I would go do that, push myself so hard, but this was the thing is like I could always do it. I could still write, I could still do the things. I would just feel so sick. Like I could do anything. I would just be, how can I manage the pain? Then I'd go home every single day, throw up, and then sleep and like cry. And then
Oh my
there was a
God.
point where it's like, I can't keep doing that. Like this is not sustainable. So then I was like, got serious about like full disability leave. Like, yeah, I can't come into the newsroom anymore. There's nothing that I can do. Like on a part basis, I have to kind of like cut it off completely. And then maybe like 4 months after that, I started doing more like special projects, but I never came back to my role on disability for a year and then ended up not being able to return actually at all, which was really sad, but that was just the reality. And so then during that time, after I saw the MD, the sports med doc, then it was like, all right, we got to get some therapies on board.
Hmm.
I could never imagine that like speech therapy would be something that I would have to do. But I would to speech therapy, physical therapy, um, like normal therapy, CBT, like did that and did like dry needling, saw someone for like my neck. It was like one of those where you have like all the different modalities going at one time. Um,
And it was at the same time you were seeing all of them like simultaneously.
yeah, which I know now maybe wasn't the best move, but that's what I was doing then. It was like my full-time job was then managing all of my treatments, and none of them were in the same build. Like they were all 30 minutes apart, and then you're driving, and then, it's like I know
Mhm.
everyone's kind of been through that. So it was
Mhm.
a journey, but it was, yeah, really eye-opening to learn of how many facets of your like abilities can be impacted by the
Yeah.
concussion.
Yes. Well, and it is like having all of those different aspects addressed, I think is important. And if they are if they're able to be addressed by people who are communicating with each other and you're not having to
Right.
manage all of your going away, like going to different appointments at different times, and like that's so demanding. It just breaks my heart that this is kind of still what is expected for people who are on a healing journey. I think there are
Yeah.
options that are not that now, but it's still that's kind of the main way people are getting help. It's just this like very siloed care. Like here, I know this thing, let me work on that with you. I know this
Yeah.
thing. Um,
And that was really hard for me because I remember my biggest issues ended up being like my vision and some of like vestibular stuff. So then the vision therapist would be like, no, this is actually the root is your vestibular. You got to go work with your PT. And then the PT would be like, this is your eyes. Like you got to get back to. And so then I just be like, okay, well, I can you guys call each other? Because I don't know
right.
what I'm supposed to do, but I just know it hurts. So can we
Yes.
figure this out?
Oh man. Yeah, that it is so frustrating and so hard and such a, I think, unfortunately common experience. So I'm glad that you're
Yeah.
bringing it up and sharing it. And yeah, I think that's part of why it's so important to have really well educated on concussions
Yes.
providers, like someone who understands concussion and how it all plays into each other and all of that. So important.
100%.
Um, Coming back a little bit, just curious,
Sure.
how long, like that intense light sensitivity and really intense headache, how long did those last?
Honestly, like 2.5 years, probably.
Oh
Of the
my
like
gosh.
really intense. It was like really bad. And I'm sure it's because I also wasn't doing like because I continued to push myself in so many different ways. Like I just never let
Mm,
myself like fully cool off. Because even though I wasn't back in the newsroom and I like picked up a job coaching soccer, like what was I doing? Like I was just so like, I have to make money, I have to pay for all this health stuff, and I need my insurance and I need this. And I was also so like there's the mental health aspect of it that I was very aware if I'm just in my room all day thinking about how sick I am and how I can't do anything I want to do, like I'm going to be I always felt uh so on the brink of this like severe depression that I was like not allowing myself to go there, that I would just that's kind of what that was looking like. So I
yeah.
was a coping mechanism that was helping me my mental health, but it was making my recovery from the brain injury probably much more challenging. Um, and
That
so yeah, the severity of the symptoms hung around like for a very long time. And then a part of the story that I'm leaving out was, so 2017 was that concussion. I ended up not being able to go back to the newsroom. This is part of the story you can tell later about me getting involved with the foundation. But then I moved to Boston, and within like 2 to 3 months of moving to Boston, got another concussion. And so that was in 2019. So I kind of had that, and then we had to kind of go back to square one. So it was when I say like decades long, it's not just from the 2017, it was then the subsequent one in 2019 as well.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that.
There's a lot going
Sure.
on. I
There is
know.
a lot going on. And I know, like, I know we're kind of just jumping around here, but I'm like, since we're on this topic, you explained it so beautifully, this like dilemma of I have to rest. Like your body physically, like your nervous system,
Yeah.
everything needs that peace and calm to recover and heal, as well as the challenges that you'll be getting from therapies or whatever. But like, you need that. But like you said, if you're sitting in a room and just thinking about how awful things are, like that's just the mental health piece. Like I can see that trying to keep yourself busy as a coping mechanism. Like
Yeah.
looking back now, knowing what you know now, like what would you do like differently? Because you probably did feel like you needed to be providing for yourself and doing all the things, right? Like how what would you do differently if you were able to go back?
I think one of the main things that would have made a major difference in those first 2 years would have been the way that I talk to myself is what I would have done differently, because just as a human, I put a lot of pressure on myself, but B, it became this like, what's wrong with you? You're not getting better. You're not doing enough. Try harder at therapy, and then it's um this like, are you being a wuss? Like, does your head actually hurt that bad? Everyone else is better. Like watching,
Mm,
I'm a huge sports fan. Then you watch the NFL, and these like guys are getting smashed, or reading this article, or like having a friend be like, my friend got in a car accident and broke five of their arm, five of their broke their arms and all these bones, and then had a concussion, and they're better in 3 weeks. And then these football players are better in two. And I'm like, okay, I'm being a wuss, I'm being that. And it was just this constant like beating up on myself for not getting better. And that caused like a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress and a lot of, frankly, pushing myself harder than I need to. If I would have just been like, this is real, this is awful, there's nothing you can do. Like, you didn't do something wrong for this to happen. This is just your reality. So, like, cool it. Like, just do your exercises, breathe. Like there was no breathing happening. There wasn't like I was working against myself, and I was making everything worse because of what was going on mentally.
yeah.
So I think the thing I would do different would be, and again, it's like hindsight's 2020, like I just didn't
Right,
have
of
that
course.
perspective. I didn't know about PCS. I didn't have anyone telling me like, hey, this is super normal for someone who has PCS. Hey, it could take 2 or 3 years, but it's going to get better. Like there was just a huge knowledge gap. And it was very like, my doctor kept saying, and this is no knock to him, but like some patients I just have, and a lot of my patients, they just wake up one day and they're better. So then I was like, okay, so I'm just waiting to wake up and feel better, and it's not happening. So when's it going to happen? Like, what is going on? And so, this is not a very concise answer, but I think it would just be the way that I speak to myself, and the way that I maybe like have perspective on the injury itself, of like,
Yes.
you're not going to die. You're not going to, because that was another thing. Like, I became so anxious about every environment that I was in, of like, this is going to make my head hurt more. And if my head ever gets to that 10 out of 10 headache again, like, I don't know that I'll survive. And now having this perspective of like, you're not going to die. You're not going to like pass out. You might pass out. Like things of like, you take your medicine, you remove yourself from the situation, just having that, like, it's going to be okay. It's going to hurt, and it's going to be awful probably, but it's going to be okay. And you're then going to feel better in a few days. But I didn't have that. So it was just constantly like bracing for the
Yes.
worst case scenario, and not feeling like you had anybody that understood or that could then help you through that. So
Yeah.
I think that's what I would change. And I would also, let's see, what would I change? I don't know. I'm thinking back of like all the things, and I'm like, no, everything made me, I felt every single thing made my head hurt worse. So it's like, there's things
Yeah.
that help me now, that wouldn't have helped me then because I just wasn't in a place for it to help yet. So yeah.
I no, I think that's honestly like such an insightful answer. I really, really appreciate your honesty and just openness with this. And I want everybody to hear this. Like I feel like
Yeah.
I wish that we could just get this information to all of the people who are dealing with head injury and concussions because this is I think you just nailed some really important points. There there are multiple aspects to recovery from concussion. And one is absolutely the physiological piece, like getting the vision therapy and the vestibular therapy and the like all of the things that will help with your physical body and your brain. Those are important and key. But just as important is the education and understanding the mental and emotional piece, the how you're talking to yourself, how you're pacing yourself, when you're like letting yourself get rest and understanding, like you said, understanding that what is real and what is not real about a concussion, what is that it is real, that your experience is legitimate and valid, and also that it's not going to kill you. Like all of these things, like those are just as important as the physiological piece and will make a huge difference. Like they all play into each other. And if we can get on a positive spiral instead of a negative one, and those that's huge. So I'm so sorry that you had that experience, but I am so grateful for your like ability to see it for what it was and how those key important aspects that don't get talked about a lot would have made a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just really I feel very strongly, passionately about that. That's like why I do the podcast. I want people to understand that, and that's why I do the coaching because those physical and like the pacing and the sleep and the understanding your body and what it needs, like those pieces are key to allowing that physiological side to work. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
just love that.
I appreciate that. And I would just add too, I think another part of it was the spiraling in those first 2 years too. I think it would be so helpful for people to like have that deep education of post-concussion syndrome in all of the different areas because I was seeking out this like other diagnosis because I'm like, well, this I kept hearing like,
Right.
well, the concussion's over. Like you're not still concussed. So like, what's going on with you?
Mhm.
I had a lot of close people in my life saying that to me. So then I'm like, what is going on? And I'm Googling and I'm like, okay, do I need to go to Mayo? Do I have like this like rare something else going on? Like, what is this? What is that? And if I would have just had the understanding of like, hey, no, actually, all of this can be from the concussion and it's
Yeah.
okay. And then now the work I do and I'm reading all these things from these, and I'm like, yeah, I had every single symptom possible and that's normal and that's what it is. So it's not just a concussion. The concussions, like having that education I think would have been extremely helpful too, so then you're not chasing this other diagnosis and then people in your life and you can then confidently speak about it.
Yeah.
I found it's really helpful to just say I had a brain injury and then people take it more seriously and be like, I had a brain injury, here are my symptoms, and they're like, oh, rather than like, yeah, I had a concussion, I'm still not doing well, and they're like, that was like 5 months ago. Like, what have you talked to your doctor? Like, is something else wrong? And
Yes.
but when you don't have that knowledge, then it's easy to feel yourself of like, yeah, something else has to be wrong. Like, there's no way this is that.
All the concussion. Right. Oh, that's such a good point. And yes, like to let people know it impacts everything and it is great like digestive issues, like
Yes.
just sweating randomly, like all like there are so
Yeah.
many things that you would not at all assume is connected to that really are. So yes, I education, understanding about it. And I love that our general knowledge about it is expanding and increasing. Like there
Yes.
is research, there are people working actively on helping understand it better and get that information out. And I'm so grateful for that. But yes, it is so important. It is amazing how much a little understanding can go such a long way in
Mhm.
just giving peace of mind and
Yes.
you know what you're dealing with. Like we hate limbo so badly. Like if we don't know what's
Mhm.
wrong, that's the bigger deal than the actual thing that's causing us pain or frustration, right? It's like not knowing why it's happening is so frustrating. And so,
Yes.
yeah, understanding like what it is, what it isn't, and how to handle it just really could make all the difference. Thank you for sharing all of that. I think that's really
Yeah, of
important for people
course.
to hear. So you mentioned a bunch of the things that you tried, therapies and things. Was there anything else on the treatments, therapies, things that you tried that you did feel were particularly helpful or that you would recommend for people to look into if they're dealing with stuff right now?
Sure. It's hard for me to pinpoint like which was the most helpful because I was doing so many things at one time. However, I'm not just saying this because of your background, but when I then was in Boston and had the other concussion, that's when I started seeing an OT for the first time, and that was game changer. I usually attribute like my speech therapist in the beginning, just like such a game changer, and then OT there after the second one. It was so helpful, her work, and just like, okay, how can we break up your day? Like, let's look at your day. What are we doing? When are the symptoms coming? Here's when we're taking breaks. Here's when we're just, I think, the accommodations too of like, can we put a blue filter screen over your computer and how much that's gonna, I think she really helped me also in like not be afraid to make things more accessible for me to decrease my symptoms. Like, look, we have these symptoms. How are we going to get through the day without them peaking as high as they can? And I was really resistant to that at first because I don't want to look different. I don't want to wear my sunglasses inside. I don't want to have this headache. I don't want people to know, like, I just want to like muscle through it. I want to be better. I was very much at the point then after 2 years, it was like, I want to be better. And even if I'm not, like, I'm over it. Like, I'm just going to do what I want to do. And she was really good at like, let's not, because then you're actually never going to get better. So like, here's things we can do all day long. And just like that acceptance of like, okay, I can't do everything that I want or that I used to do or that my friends are doing, but like tough, like that's what it is. So like, let's build out our day the best that we can for the symptoms that I'm having. And so OT was huge, and I would recommend anyone to that's especially reintegrating to school or to work, like and just life in general. But I found that to be the most helpful for my symptoms in that regard. I've also, like I mentioned, have a ton of vision stuff. Vision therapy I would recommend because I understand that I had a really hard time with it because it made me feel extremely sick. Like every single thing would flare my symptoms. And so I like actually hated vision therapy, but I can understand the benefit. And then honestly, I always say, and this is where it gets tricky because I don't want to just say, well, just exercise and you'll feel better. Because looking back on those first 2 years, like even just going on a walk, it was awful. But once I got kind of past that peak of like, okay, now I can do it, I think that's something that has made me continually feel better. It's
Yeah.
just integrating a consistent exercise.
Yes, exercise is medicine, and it is
Yes.
so it is key for all the things. I actually recently did an interview. It should be coming out soon. So by the time this one comes out, the other one will be out on sleep.
Oh,
And the sleep doctor that I was talking to was like, yes, exercise is medicine for sleep as well. Like it is just so important. And so even if exercise is walking or like just getting up out of your chair and walking to the other side of the room, like movement
mm,
is important and our bodies need it and our brains need it. And it is like if you need to start in small doses, that's okay, but exercise is going to be very key to recovery. So I appreciate you
yes.
bringing that part out too. But yeah, speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, vision therapy, like all of these things are so important and will, I think, play a key role in a lot of people's recovery. And I appreciate what you're talking about with occupational therapy, the accommodations. I'm, I, and I understand and can appreciate your resistance to wanting to use them. Um, just for people to know, like how many of those things that you guys implemented at the beginning there are things that you're still implementing and needing, or have you gotten to a point where like because your system has calmed down, because you've given it the support that it needed to be able to heal, are there things that you've graduated from?
Yes, so definitely graduated. So lucky that was about 7 years ago now when I introduced all of those. And so I don't need the filters anymore. I don't need like I used to have a timer on my desk for breaks and like forcing myself to step away. I pretty much function now within my workday completely normally. When I know I have maybe 4+ meetings stacked, like I will have to take a brain break and just like walk. But I think anyone would need to do that,
Right.
It's just like sort of normal. And so The only accommodations I would say that I probably keep would be now going into like very stimulating environments, like socially. So if I know I'm going to be at a concert or like a big game or even like airports, like I don't leave the house without my earplugs. I have my sunglasses. I always have a hat. Like I have the knowledge of like, you need to take a break. Like you have to go outside, get fresh air, be by yourself for 10 minutes. So those sort of strategies I still integrate into my life, but all of the like work related ones, I'm really fortunate to say that I've graduated from.
Awesome. Okay,
I
thank you.
would,
Oh, go ahead.
oh, sorry, no, you go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say I appreciate that perspective because like even as an OT, I'm like I sometimes feel this I don't know, like resistance almost to wanting to give people accommodations because I'm like,
Right,
hey, you need them, but also I don't want you to become a like quote unquote crutch. Like I don't want it to be something that you're relying
right.
on and therefore not working on improving the underlying issues. But I think it's important. I appreciate you bringing this point out that it's okay to use those accommodations. Like if you need them, like do what you need to do to be able to function to the degree that you can,
Mhm.
right? Like, and if at the beginning that means a lot of accommodations, like it's okay to use those, and it's okay to know that like using those is going to allow your system to calm down to the point where it can heal. Because if you're in constant fight or flight and like a high
Yep.
alert and not able to like if it's in survival mode, it's not going to be healing. And so if you can do what it takes to let the system get to a point where it can heal, then you'll get to a point where you can graduate from these things. And maybe some things you will still want to implement it like I appreciate that point too. Like, yes, there are things that I still use when I need them, but you know when you need them, you know what to do. And it makes it, I imagine, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I would hope that it would allow you to go more confidently into your life and into the world and like do
Yes,
what you want to do, right?
yes, 100%.
Okay, yes, thank you. So I appreciate that perspective and those points. So what were you going to say before? Sorry.
Oh,
Before.
I was just going to note something else as I was thinking of when you asked other things that had helped.
Yeah.
And I don't want to like ever get into recommending a specific medication, but I think this idea of like migraine. So with the headaches being persistent, like that's still something I struggle with. That's something that happened from the concussion. And like I said, I never had headaches before, but I was very resistant to like, migraine treatment, long-term headache treatment, because I was like, well, that's not the root. Like the root's the concussion. So we got to figure out the concussion. I don't know. I just was like not wanting to write it, like have people just treat it as like, well, you have migraine disorder, you have migraine. Like I'm like, no,
Right.
but I have PCS actually. So like, let's do PCS treatment. And I've definitely graduated in that understanding. And now I'm under like several different protocols, like for migraine, and they have been game changer and very helpful. And so I would just encourage people if you maybe have that same resistance or you're thinking about it and like, I just don't want it to be swept under as like, oh, just migraine and that's dismissing my PCS in some way.
Mhm.
To maybe see a migraine specialist or have that treatment folded in with your concussion specialist because it has made a huge difference for me.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you for sharing that. But I do think that it is important. And I think sometimes people who are not aware of the concussion like impacts as much might be afraid, might actually have it swept under the rug and just be treated as migraine and not have the other
Yeah.
piece taken into
The
account. And
other
so
pieces are very important
it
and
is
that can
very
help the
important. Like
headaches too. That could
they,
make all the headaches go away potentially. So yeah,
right.
maybe I just gave awful advice actually
No, no, no,
because
no. I don't think
I
it is.
hear you now. That's a good point.
No, but I appreciate your perspective. Like this is why we do this. Like I want to understand people's experience and to know that for you, I love that you were so aware of the concussion piece and wanted to make sure that that was addressed and that the migraine specialty has been very like people who understand that really well, even if they didn't understand concussions really, really well, like that has been really effective for you. Like great.
Mm.
It's so good to know. I'm glad that it's helping. So I appreciate all of these perspectives. I think it's so just really valuable to have real life experience shared. So thank you. Um, so you brought this up earlier, the whole, I don't know, the idea that, or the experience of having your whole life just ripped out from under you.
Mhm.
It's absolutely it just like rocks your world, right? So how and it's so hard, I think, especially, if people are listening to this and it's they just had one and they're just like a month or two in and they're like, well, is this going to be my experience? Is it going to be a decades long thing for me, or is this going to be something that can resolve? That's again part of that like limbo, not knowing, like we don't know the future and how it's going to pan out. So like what helped you to come to the acceptance of it? And I don't want to just say that as like, we'll just accept it and you'll, I think people are resistant to accepting because it might equate to giving up in some way, or they think that
Mm.
that's the case. I would just be interested in hearing like how you came to this acceptance of it and what your ideas are around acceptance in general in relation to concussion.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting question. And I would want to say to anyone listening, I hope my story is not discouraging because I remember in the beginning, I started joining some of the Facebook groups and I saw people saying, like, it's been 8 years, and I was like, whoa, I can't read that. I'm the
Yeah.
freaking out. Like, I can't even have it be 8 weeks. Like, I can't know that. Like, the concept of time. And so I don't want you to hear my story and think I've also been suffering at that 10 out of 10 for nearly 10 years because I haven't. Like I've been totally living my life and feeling really great for the most part for the last few years. And so everyone's journey is their own. I just want people to really know that. I also did a lot of things wrong and made things worse for myself as why it's lasted so long. And so I want to say that first. And then as far as the acceptance, I think it's really challenging. However, maybe what made the biggest difference from for me, and I've heard this a lot on the interviews that I've done on my podcast, is the moving away from the chasing who I was before the concussion. Like I did that for a year. Like it was like I just want to get back. I still don't feel normal. I'm not back to how I was. And this happened to me. I think I was 25, and so like transparently, I was very social, going out a ton, like partying, having this big life, and it's like to me, it was like, if I can't do that again, I'm not back. I'm not normal. And so once I was able to accept, like, hey, that's off the table. Like, you're not going to be doing exactly what you were doing, but it's also, you're 28 now. You wouldn't want to be doing that anyways. And so accepting that that's not what we're chasing again, but we're chasing like getting through the day in a way that feels good and we're not crashing out at the end of every day and we're able to be a part of our relationships, we're able to contribute in whatever that looks like, to society and however that works. Like once that became the goal, like I think that acceptance, that piece of accepting that we're not going backwards, like we're only going forwards, made a huge difference for me.
Mm.
I don't know how great of an answer that is, but I think that is like the piece that helped. And it wasn't giving up. It was just like accepting reality. And it goes back to that like being kind to yourself. Because if you're gonna put that pressure and like that's your marker, you're just that's just so hard and just unfair, I think. So if we can just give ourselves a new marker and work towards that and accepting that, hey, things are different now, but then also finding gratitude in each little milestone we're able to make. I think gratitude was a huge part of it too.
Mm.
Just being like, okay, yeah, that's off the table. We're not getting back to that. But what's really exciting is you just got through the day with only one nap and you usually have to take two. So here we go. Like that's awesome. I think that helped me a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think just a couple thoughts though on that, like uh it's accepting that it's different. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. Different always isn't always
Right.
a bad
Right.
thing, right? And I did an interview with an 18-year-old girl who had a concussion when she was 15 and had she had some cool insights to share. And one of the things she talked about was like this concept of bouncing forward instead of bouncing back. Like we talk about wanting to
Mhm.
bounce back from something, and like we think of it as going, yeah, returning to how we were. But like you were saying, it's what's forward, what's ahead of us, like what are we bouncing forward to? Which I appreciate that perspective. And then also that idea of being kind to yourself and um, an analogy that I think I've shared on the podcast before, but I really like it. And I think it applies well to this is, if you're like if you're getting directions from somewhere to somewhere, like you want to go somewhere, and you ask Siri, like, hey, take me to this place. And she pulls up the directions. She needs to know where you're at. and she doesn't
Mhm.
berate you for being there. It's like it's not like you're a bad person. Like I can't believe you're there. Like why are you even there? That doesn't even make any sense. Like it's just like, oh, okay, this is where you are. So now I know what to do to help you get to where you're at and or where you want to be. And so I just think that like acceptance and without judgment of like, okay, well, eh, I might not like it. I'm not loving being here,
Right.
but this is where I am, and that allows you to have the information that you need. And like when you can believe it and accept it, then and acknowledge that you are there, then you can move forward. Versus if you're like denying it or resisting it or like pushing it away or like being mad at yourself for being there, you prevent yourself from actually moving forward. So
Right. I also had to do a lot of work with my therapist, like psychologist. Like, I think there's like a grieving component of it
oh,
too.
absolutely.
Super valid. So, like, for me, my dream career, like, that's what I went to college for. I always wanted to be in journalism. I was a producer. I had all these plans. So, like, grieving that was really challenging. And, um, yeah, I had a lot of big feelings about that, but that was some really important work to do too. Of like, okay, we're grieving this life that we had pictured. I was a huge planner. Like
Mm,
this, I was going to move here and I was going to do that. And then it's like, so that's not happening anymore. And I think you do need to give yourself some space for like, hey, we can feel sad about that. Like that is really hard. We need
yes.
to grieve that that's gone, but then also how can we move forward and have a new plan and a new dream? So
Yeah.
I
Thank you
was,
for saying that. That is,
yeah,
it is so important. Like, yes, like, it's such I mean, all of life is such a balance between like trying to
yeah.
figure, yeah, one and the other. So yes, accepting where you are and like, but also acknowledging like, yeah, I have feelings about this too. Like it's, I did an interview with a grief specialist, and she was not specifically around concussions, but we had somebody else. Anyway, I will link to that in the show notes because I
Right.
really appreciate you bringing up the grief piece because it is so an important part of that healing journey and process. So thank you for that. So tell us about how you ended up with I know it used to be the Concussion Legacy Foundation. Now it's the
Yeah.
Concussion and CTE Foundation. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Tell us about that journey for you.
Fresh off the rebrand. Yeah, so in that, like I mentioned, it just became very apparent that I was not going to be able to return to the newsroom. That wasn't going to be a reality. And so as I started looking for other jobs, I'm like, okay, well, I love sports. My background's communication, journalism. I found an opening at the time CLF, and it's like it's so ironic because a year before then I was working on a documentary, a special project in the newsroom on concussions and CTE, like specific to
Go
that
ahead.
community. And we had sent our reporter team out to Boston to interview Dr. McKee and the research team at BU. And so I was very aware. I knew about Dr. Nowinski. I knew about the foundation. And I remember even thinking once, like, wow, that would be amazing to work for them, but not thinking anything further. So it was actually kind of like goosebump moment to then yeah, apply and get the role. But again, then I'm still pretty symptomatic with PCS and moving to Boston by myself, like for this role. But I think it just like it was such a blessing because then I'm in this environment with people who like who better to
Right.
understand and to work with. And like some days I would be maybe noticeably having a hard time and I'd have coworkers be like, time for your break. Nope, sorry, you have to go. I had an amazing manager at the time that was like, yeah, go on your walk. I would be like, what? But
Love
like,
it.
where else would you get that? And so very fortunate, have been with the foundation ever since. And it's just grown my passion. Obviously, I went into it being like, wow, that's so cool if I can help other people with PCS because I'm really understanding a lot of these feelings and help them get support, help them get these resources, tell their stories. And then from there, I've learned so much about CTE and had, the honor to meet so many of our families in that world as well. And am so invested in everything that we're doing and this progress that needs to be made for both of these communities. Like there's so much work to be done. And it's really exciting to be a part of and the passion that we have within the organization is pretty astounding. So
Oh, that is so awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I love yes, I love the passion. I can like feel it from you as you're talking about it. It is such important work that is being done. And I actually, I'm going to link to this one as well if people are listening and want to hear. I did an interview with um, a sister of of a football player who passed away, who had CTE and like went through anyway, it was they found a lot of help through your organization, and it was a big deal for them. So I will link that podcast as well with Laura Dyer. But I just so I really appreciate the work you guys are doing. I just in case somebody is listening and is not familiar with CTE, do you want to really quickly explain it and the difference between that and concussion?
Yeah, that's an important question. So, CT is chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and so it's a degenerative brain disease, and where concussion, I think of concussion would be a brain injury, and CT is a brain disease. And so we know that it's caused by repetitive head impacts, repetitive traumatic brain injuries over the course of several years. And so when we're thinking about PCS, because when I came into that space too, I was like, oh my gosh, now do I have CTE? Like I think a lot of people that can be hard. But what's really helped me is like, no, the concussion is the brain injury that should heal. And unfortunately, CTE is a disease that progresses and gets worse. Two very different things. However, obviously the intersection comes with the repetitive. So if you're in a situation where you've taken thousands of hits to the head, that's when we start thinking about being at risk for CTE, where if you're someone who has one or two concussions, like that's very different. Obviously, I'm not a neuroscientist or a doctor in any way, so I might not be explaining that in the most scientifically accurate. However, when I am trying to distill it down and explain it as easily as possible, concussion is the brain injury, CT is the brain disease.
Okay, thank you. And I do appreciate that distinction. I think it's going to be important for people to hear and understand. And if I would love to hear your perspective as someone who does a similar thing that I'm doing here with this podcast. Like you have a podcast very like with I assume that the one of the main important points that you're trying to make with it is to just increase that awareness of the injury and the impact that it can have on people. Why do you feel like that is important to do in the first place? And how has listening to other people's experiences with concussion impacted you personally?
Great question. I think it's important because a lot of what we've talked about, I go back and think about in 2017, if I would have had all these clips of people being like explaining the symptoms that they're having, and then I could see myself in them and being like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm actually not crazy. Like that is what this feels like. Like that is normal. That is someone else has that too. And even as a vehicle to then communicate what you're going through to your friends and family, I think is really important because it's, again, we're asking someone with a brain injury who's having a really hard time to then be their advocate to explain, okay, here's what I'm going through. Here's what I need. Here's how my brain is working. Like that's really challenging. Like that's a tough burden. So if instead you could just send a clip and be like, this is me, like this is what I'm going through too. Or here's this doctor talk. We don't speak to doctors, but do you know what I'm saying? Like having the vehicle to a to feel seen and heard. B, I think validation is like so key. Sometimes all I wanted was just to be like, yeah, that's what that's normal. You're nothing's wrong with you. Like that's or just like that sucks. I'm so sorry. Like that's really hard. And other people are going through it too. And you're actually not alone and you're not crazy. And so like that's a big goal of like just as many stories as we can tell to make people feel like they're other people going through it, I think is so, so important for a lot of reasons. And I think to your second part of your question of what I've learned, it just reinforces for me because once you get a few years out, I feel like sometimes I forget how hard it really was. And like it's so hard. I've said this before. There was a big piece of me that was like, I want to be admitted to the hospital. Like I want to be admitted to the hospital on a wing, and then all my therapists come to me and I do it a few times a day, and then I just relax. And then what does that do? Everyone in my life knows, oh, she's in the hospital. This is serious. This is a big deal. I don't have to be driving all around to be going to all these different therapists. I don't have to manage all my meds by myself. I don't, like you just have this yearning for like, can someone just do this for me? Like I want someone to take over, tell me what to do. And so have been reminded through this experience of how hard it really is, which then just again, like I've obviously have an extreme amount of empathy for all of the people who are going through this, but it just kind of like reignites that. And then it's also been another reminder about how challenging our healthcare system is. And it's an incredibly expensive injury to recover from. PCS is so expensive. There's so many different things that go into it. And it's really unfortunate that that has to, I mean, that's with a lot of things. I know that's not just PCS, but that's been another thing that I've been reminded of. Um, and also just how important like having that hope is. That's something we talk about all the time at the foundation is hope and having the conversations with these people of like, okay, where did you find hope? What got you through? And then wanting to then be that for others. I think a lot of the key takeaways.
Beautiful. Thank you. That was so well said. And we're going to circle back to that hope thing. I just want to point out a couple things that you said that I think are important to note. Um, I I appreciate letting people hear other people's stories just does give that validation and like maybe helps them stop gaslighting themselves. Like, yes, okay, no, this
Yes.
is real. This is accurate. Um, and I think that I hope that if people are listening to it and like hear how bad it was for someone and that they are functioning and they're able to live their life and they're
Exactly.
doing things that are fulfilling and meaningful and like just like a really beautiful life, like that is possible. Like I think I hope that people get that from these conversations because I that is I think again I guess that talks on the hope piece of things, um, but what you said too about like wishing you could just go to the hospital and have people like see what it like how like get the help that you need there and also just like let other people understand no this is real and this is really 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 hard. It reminds me of I had a conversation with Allison Moyer Smith who you know
Allison's amazing.
yeah,
Yes.
she's amazing. She's been on I've interviewed her a couple times, so I will link to those as well if people are listening. But she talked about like I believe it was her talked about oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Allison, if I'm gonna like misquote you, but she talked about like dealing with cancer and this
Mm,
and that in some ways the cancer was easier because exactly what you're talking about. Like there is, you have people who understand it and empathize. And like you were saying before about, if you call it a brain injury, then people will get it more than if you just call it just a concussion in quotes, right? Like there's just so much to it. And I think that having these conversations and letting people hear it really makes a big difference and is really important. So thank you for the work that you're doing on that as well. And then let's talk about the hope piece if that's okay for a second. Like
of
for
course.
you, like I'd love to hear your take on it because I know it can be a tricky word and can be really hard. So uh yeah, how did you find hope, maintain hope, and what did you do when you were having a setback like a second in concussion after you just dealt with 2 years of hell? Like what let's talk about that if that's okay.
Mm. Yeah, no, absolutely. It is a tricky word. I hear you on that in the framing of like I had a really hard time when people just be like, you're gonna get better, everything's gonna be fine. It's like that feels empty, right? It's like, well, when? When am I getting better? And what do I need to do? And am like I feel that I had a hard time with those sort of statements. So I don't want to just be like, well, just have hope and then you'll be fine. But I think for me, I had to take away like future planning and thinking. Like that was not helpful to me to be like, okay, well, in 6 months, I'm going to be here. In 8 months, I'm going to do this. And then maybe in 2 years, because like you said, there are no set timelines. And so being so fixated on that was actually not helpful because I didn't know. And then you're like setting yourself up for disappointment when you're not reaching those milestones and it's not happening. So I had to just break it down. I had a motto of like, day by day. Like I had to live one day at a time or it just wasn't going to work out. And I even had to communicate to my friends because I had a few of my best friends like every day be like, how are you feeling today? How's it going today? How are you? And I'd be like, I'm actually not making progress day by day. And you continuing to ask that is making me feel worse because then I'm like still the same, So it had to be like, we can't do that. But for me, day by day, it would just be like one day at a time. I always tried to focus on give myself something to look forward to every single day, even if it was just like I'm gonna have ice cream tonight, or I'm gonna call XYZ friend for 10 minutes, or I had a hard time, like I can watch 30 minutes of this one movie. Like that's the thing I'm looking forward to at the end of the day, whatever that was. And then I had to have gratitude journal of like, okay, what are even if you can't come up with three things, what are two things you're thankful for? Like, what's one thing that you did today that you couldn't do yesterday? Or what's one thing I had to just stay so present in like the good because if you're just focusing on everything you can't do and everything that's bad, it's a pretty long list. Like everything got taken away. Everything that I would normally like exercise was a huge outlet for me. Like I was super extroverted, like very social. That was an outlet. Playing piano, like all of the even the little things that I'm like, well, that gives me a headache. Can't do that anymore. Can't, the list was pretty long. And if that was the focus, it's incredibly easy to not have hope because I can't do anything I like to do. Everything hurts. I don't know when I'm going to get better. I can't have a job, like that is very easy to see how that would be bad. So I had to fight so hard to be like, we're not doing that. And like every time my brain went there, it was like, no, but was one thing that was good. Or like even like I know comparative suffering can be really like that's not what we should be doing. But I sometimes had to be looking at some situations that were worse to be like, it could be that. You are not that. You are this, and this is what we're doing. Like I that's just the truth. Like that's how I had to get through the day. And like I did find hope in that because then you can look back in the gratitude journal and look to that every day. This is what we're thankful for. This is the progress. And sometimes the progress then goes back and then you go forward and then you go back. But it's like knowing that you've had that little piece of progress before, so it's possible. So like let's chase it again. That's kind of how I was able in the dark times to just like try to be really present. And again, giving yourself that like I am going to do I have to look forward to something. And the daily things were easier for me rather than like I'm going to look forward to a trip in 6 months because then it'd be like, but can I go to the airport? Am I going to be able to do,
Right.
then it's like too anxious. But it's like if I can look forward to ice cream, great, I know I can do that and that's going to come and it's going to be great. So I think that and then my faith also really helped me through during that time.
Yeah. Can you speak a little more to the faith thing? I think that that will resonate with a lot of people. I'd love to hear
Oh,
anything else you want to share about that.
oh, sure. Yeah, I'm a Christian and I just because I wasn't working, I'm Catholic, I then had the opportunity to go to church like every single day if I wanted to. And that would be a really good test for me, to test like the stimulation and like how can I be in the world? And then also, okay, amazing, I'm in the world. Like if that's your one thing that you're going to be in the world for the day, and then just like be with God and have that moment to just, again, it goes back to being grateful. So if I can spend an hour just like praying in Thanksgiving for everything that I have, and then also being like, okay, and then please help me get better. Like we gotta get better. That was like my hour to do that. And then I found that that gave me a lot of peace. And it was just a really good something that you can always rely on, right? So that was really important for me. All of those things had to align for my perspective to kind of like be on the right track to get me through.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I do like it is as I talk to lots of people, I'm sure you've noticed this too, but like you talk to a lot of people, you hear some themes that come up and
Mm,
the theme of gratitude and faith and like having that sustain you through the really, really, really hard that you're dealing with is it is consistent and it's something that I think it's worth putting out there and having people aware like it's grounding, it's foundational. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And I do love that like idea, like, okay, we can just redirect, like when we want to go, our brains are gonna want it. They're always on the lookout for danger and trying to keep us safe. And so if we're like, we can't do all these things and like remind ourselves of all the stuff we can't do, if we can be intentional and on purpose about like redirecting and just what am I thankful for? What can I do? What is I like your perspective of like what can I do today that's going to be something that I can look forward to and I could totally understand the idea that like putting it any further out than that may or may not happen and then you're just like be worried that you're setting yourself up for disappointment or whatever. So like what can I do today? I really appreciate that perspective. And I also love that you talked about helping your friends know what not to do. Like they
Mhm.
obviously, like you can tell that that was coming from so much love. They knew that you were struggling. They wanted to help you. They wanted to like
Yes.
be there for you. But the way that they were trying it was actually problematic for you. So I know we're running out of time here, but is there anything that you would like to, any advice that you'd give, or to the people who are loving someone who is struggling with this? Like what would you say to them? How could they help themselves and their loved one best?
Sure. That's so tricky because everyone is so different. So like for me, that was the like constant check-ins were not helpful when it became very apparent that we were like in it for the long haul, because then it made me feel like I was failing if I didn't have anything good to report every single day. And there was like a lot of pressure. Um, what I would say to a loved one would just be like support and understanding, like just being, and I think even though if you haven't been through it, but providing that validation of like, wow, that is horrible. I am so sorry you're going through that. That must be so hard. Like, whatever you need, rather than like being like a challenger or a questioning of like, oh, like explain like why your head is doing that. And is that symptom from the concussion? Like, that is not helpful to the person, but just being like, that sucks. I'm so sorry. Like, whatever I can do to help you get better. I think also communicating in a way that is not necessarily like demanding a response. And so being on a phone can be really hard for someone with these symptoms. Um, Having, for me at least, within that first 6 months, like having a live conversation, my headache would go through the roof after about like honestly 5 or 10 minutes, because I was having to focus so hard on what I was saying, what I was going to say back, and like listening and hearing. And again, all those things that you don't think about and you take for granted that your brain is doing, when your brain can't do it, then you really realize it. And so like when I would just ask my friends like, hey, can you just send me a video message, like so that I can see you, then I can watch it when I want to, but it's not like demanding like a live convo or like, hey, I have to respond to them right now. And so then when I feel up for it, I can say something back. But I also just said like, hey, I might not be up for it to say something back, but can you guys still just send me messages so I feel included? Like I want to know what's going on. I want the gossip. I want the fun party stories. Like just keep me in the loop. And like it was, I think that's a way, again, like I'm not answering the question well because I'm saying everything I asked for. But if you were that person, maybe
Yeah.
just sending a note every so often, like, hey, this is what happened this weekend. Like, this was so funny, or I'm really into that. Like, entertainment is hard to come by in those, like, when you're in a really rough time, right? Because if being on your phone is hard, watching shows is hard. So maybe all we have left is audiobooks. And then I had to slow it down to 0.5 speed, so it's like we we want to hear the stories. And so like anything you can do to provide that entertainment, I think is really helpful in those lonely times. And then this might go without saying, but just the like checking in of like, because I think when it happens, and I think this is common with a lot of things, but everyone's like, oh, I'm so sorry, sending flowers, sending things. And then in 3 weeks, you never hear from them again. And it's like, I actually need you more 3 weeks later. So continuing to check in, again, just being supportive, no judgment, not ever making, because it's invisible, like not ever like questioning, I think is a good one too. Um, and little things like dropping off groceries or thinking of things that are very stimulating that could be quite hard. So like a grocery store would be a nightmare for me. So if someone would have done that, like that would have been amazing. Or another thing, sorry, I'm really rambling, but I think
Oh, you're good. Great.
um it goes a really long way if you as a loved one take 10 to 20 minutes to research PCS and like learn the symptoms and figure out what someone might be going through, to have that next level empathy, like to have them feel seen. So it means the world to someone with this. If you were to go somewhere, if you had them over your house, to be like, right when they come over, like, hey, do you want me to turn the lights down? Or, hey, is that music on too loud? Or, hey, like those little things, I think is how you can really show up for somebody with PCS. Like that meant the world to me because I hate, oh, it was so hard going and I try to be social and then there's a TV going on in the background and there's music and there's people in the kitchen making, and then you have to be the one to be like, I'm so sorry, but could you please turn that TV off? Like I'm having a really hard time having all these noises at one time. And then you feel like you're like ruining the vibe. So if you're able to like educate yourself to learn those things and know like, okay, when XYZ comes over, we got to keep one sound at a time and maybe just ask. And then that's great. If they're like, oh no, actually lights aren't bothering to me today, I'm good. But just that little thing can help you feel so seen and like included and that you're not like a burden to have to ask to change those things is huge. So that would, you could cut the rest out and that would be my number one advice.
Okay, I know, and that's such good advice and something, yes, that I think even if, somebody, if you're inviting somebody over and just have like a quiet room, like, hey, just so you know, if this is too much, you can come to this space here and I've got this for you. I think that yeah, that could be another show of awareness and just yeah, all of those were so good. I appreciate that. And it is, and like you said, it's so individual to the person and individual to that person that day. Like you just never know
Right.
what's going to be happening for them at the time. And maybe one day it would be really nice and they like really wish that somebody would ask them how they're doing. Another day, like, please stop asking, right? So
Yeah.
it is up and down and all over the place. And like you said, I think at the core of it, it's just like trying to be understanding, believing the person, and just loving them as they are,
Mm.
whatever they're showing up as that day, right? Um,
Yes.
and yes, yeah. So thank you. That's perfect. Um, this has been a fantastic conversation. I knew it was going to be good, and it's like
Yeah, of
10 out of 10. I loved it. Thank you so much for being here and sharing
course.
all of this. I really appreciate your perspective and your ability to share it so beautifully. So, is there anything else that you want to make sure that we talk about or touch on, or like that think people need to know about concussions or your experience of it thus far?
Sure. I want to make sure that I talk about our helpline at the Concussion CTE
Yes.
Foundation. I didn't include that when I was kind of talking about my role there. But just so everyone is aware, we do have a free resource, our helpline. It's not an actual line that you call, it's a form on our website that you fill out. You can ask somebody to help you fill it out because it is a little bit long. I'll give that warning, but the details help our case coordinator so much know how to help you best. There is also, once you fill out that form, a number and you can get connected on a one-on-one call. So there are options to have phone calls, absolutely. I just want to make it clear because I think people hear helpline and they sometimes think hotline and it's not a crisis line in any way.
Okay.
Um, but what we do is we take all of your symptoms, all of your exposures, and then are able to connect people with what they're looking for. If you already have providers, you're set there, you're looking for peer support, we have a one-on-one peer support program where you can match you up with somebody with similar experiences to you that's been through it. We also have Zoom support groups for different groups that meet quite often, and then you can be more in a bigger support group. And we have so many educational resources. We have a large guidebook that I could send that I should have linked that would be great for people to have, just like breaking it down, resources for like how to prepare for your doctor's appointment, good questions to ask, like here's the symptoms you should be aware of, here's how you can talk to a loved one when you have this. And so, again, a lot of things that I wish I'd have that once you share what you're going through and what you're looking for, our case coordinators can then put you in touch with that information. And if you don't already have doctors and providers, then we match you up with trusted providers in your area that we know get it. Like, okay, this person's going to be great for PCS, or hey, you're having these symptoms. We'd actually recommend a vision therapist. Here's one we know that's great. You can indicate if you're willing to travel or not, and then we can get you some recommendations kind of based on your area. So really want people to know if they're struggling, or even if you maybe have some doctors but you're looking for second opinions or want to try something new, please don't hesitate to reach out. Our team is amazing and they would love to help you.
Oh my gosh, I am so grateful that this exists. I like there. I think
I
there's
wish it existed for me. Yeah, it's
yes. Oh, that's amazing. And I like everybody that I've talked to that has had experience with, or like I've talked to a few people who've like worked there or have had experience with it. Everybody like says very good things about this organization. So I love what you're doing. I so appreciate it. And thank you for putting that. We will put the link in the show notes. And if you want to send me that link to the guidebook or whatever, that would be awesome
yes.
too.
Yep.
Is there like something you want to just say out here so people listening can write it down if they want to? Like, what is the line, or should I just link to it? The
Concussion and CTE.org/helpline.
Okay.
I'm getting used to that because we just changed our name. It just used to be clfhelpline.org, but yeah, concussionandct.org/helpline. Also, if you just go to concussioncte.org, our homepage, there's a button, really big helpline button. You can find the helpline kind of anywhere on our website. So, and
Perfect.
that will direct you to that form that you then fill out.
Okay, great. Thank you. Random silly question. Is it like an ampersand or is it written out as and?
No,
Concussion.
great question. It's written out as and
Okay,
concussionandcte.org/helpline.
perfect. Okay, we will put that out there. So grateful for you being here and doing what you're doing and getting this information out there. I just am really grateful. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad you listened in today. I hope you have gained some helpful insights and inspiration regarding dealing with and recovering from concussions. My goal is to create more awareness and education about concussions and the fact that there is so much that can be done to improve life after someone has had one. Help me spread the message by liking, commenting, rating, and subscribing to this podcast, and share it with others who would benefit from hearing it. There are more resources available on my website. And again, if you or someone you love would benefit from concussion coaching, sign up for a free consultation using the link in the show notes or at my website, www.theconcussioncoach.com. Thank you. See you next time, and take good care of that amazing brain of yours.